What is up, y'all? Welcome back to episode 47 of That's No Moon Pod. Big spoilers ahead. I'm sorry about the thumbnail, but I had to do it to him. If you don't know by now, then I don't know what you've been doing, but Hayden Christensen's back. Anakin Skywalker is back. And call me crazy, but Star Wars may be back as well. Uh, this was easily the most hyped Star Wars TV Disney Plus episode of anything that Disney has done since Rogue One, Force Awakens. This is some stuff that whenever we heard about all these shows coming out, the possibilities, um, especially with the Kenobi show, but then Dave Filoni with Ahsoka, you just knew something like this was going to happen. It had to. And it delivered. It wasn't no Kenobi swoop with, oh no, let's get back to that stuff. It focused on Anakin and Ahsoka being given a final lesson pretty much on, what are you doing? Are you fighting to live or fighting to survive? Um, yeah, I just can't. There's just so much stuff, and let's just take it from the top, I guess. I really like how they set you up nicely with kind of what might be going on with Ahsoka and the world between worlds. Because if you're just jumping into the show, not having seen Rebels or Clone Wars or don't even know who Ahsoka is, and then all of a sudden Anakin is in this, Bifrost in space where it looks like Ahsoka just died, which I guess technically she did. And then now here's Ahsoka and Anakin face to face, and the CGI on Hayden Christensen looked a lot better in this episode for sure than that initial, um, view that we got of him last week at the end. But I thought the CGI or the aging, whatever, looked really good. The wigs, I thought fit. The outfits were perfect from Revenge of the Sith Anakin to the Clone Wars Anakin, to where it's just, I mean, once you finally get into kind of what's going on, Anakin is in this world between worlds with Ahsoka after losing to Balin, and she's wondering what's going on, just like pretty much everyone else watching. And it's cool because this really gets to show the people more of Anakin Skywalker that, again, if you haven't seen the Clone Wars, um, this episode gave you more of an insight on who was Anakin as a person, as a Jedi, um, and as a master, having Ahsoka being so young and training her ever since she was a little kid. Um, you really get to see that intense side of Anakin and his training with Ahsoka, but you also see the Anakin that we've known, where he's joking on the battlefield during the Clone Wars, which that scene was probably the coolest, if not for sure, one of the coolest um, Star Wars scenes that we've gotten out of Disney. Um, they had everything, just more of that conversation. The way that scene kind of starts, it kind of had like that uh, Blade Runner was Blade Runner 2049 with Ryan Gosling. Kind of just how like that silhouette with the smoke, and then uh, Ahsoka, young Ahsoka, just in the middle of the screen, and then all of a sudden you see all the clone troopers running by her, and you kind of know, okay, this is where we're at in time. And then Clone Wars armored up Anakin Skywalker just shows up, and just the way that whole scene plays out with you're seeing the clones and you see Rex, um, by having all the injured clones, and Ahsoka's heartbroken that she's supposed to be leading these soldiers in a battle and they keep dying because of this war, and Anakin seems like he's stone faced and again making jokes, which we all know that's who Anakin is. He's always been that serious, kind of guy, but he also likes to joke around and not take things too seriously because he's one of the few people in the galaxy that could get away with that. Um, but I just like the whole interaction between Anakin and young Ahsoka, taking you back to just classic Clone Wars episodes of her asking him questions and not understanding, and then Anakin's just doing his best to try to make her understand why they have to do what they're doing, and not just to survive necessarily, but to live. Which I think in this episode they're kind of making a point of the difference between the two. And again, it just really lets Hayden Christensen, and it gives him justice for him and what he did with Anakin back in the day. And it's kind of given him another opportunity to grow his character, because at the end of the day, when we all think of Anakin, we picture Hayden Christensen in our mind. And that's just a fact. Um, so for him to get this opportunity again to really showcase his acting abilities and his love for the character, I think that's probably the best thing to come out of all of this at the end of the day, because that means we're probably going to get a lot more of him. And once this whole kind of Clone Wars scene plays out, and then he kind of just lets her know, I mean, what the deal is, and the battle kind of just takes on, and then the troops and Anakin push forward, and Ahsoka's just watching as he runs off in the distance, or he kind of just walks off. But again, the silhouette with the smoke, um, and you just see him from the back as he's walking away, just turn from the blue lightsaber Clone Wars armored Anakin, then lightning flashes and he's back into the Darth Vader outfit with the red saber, and it kind of just goes back and forth, showing who he is and who he eventually becomes. Um, the visuals in this episode were just crazy. Just such memorable moments, and not just fan service, because a lot of people, that's what they're gonna say. Um, but it wasn't just, hey, here's Hayden Christensen and watch him turn into Darth Vader real quick. Um, it goes back to what I said in last week's episode of the pod, where when Ahsoka's fighting Balin, they're you know they're not just there fighting for whatever. They're talking to each other in between before the fight even starts. There's dialogue and conversation. Uh, that's what makes Star Wars, I think, what it is when it comes to the fight scenes and just the overall, just the way it's written and the way the story is told in Star Wars. I thought this episode just was perfect. It did it perfectly. Um, and then once we get that young Ahsoka Clone Wars, uh, the episode just gets crazier from there on to where um, we're back into the world between worlds. Um, Meanwhile, Jason and Chopper and Hera are up there wondering where Ahsoka and Sabine are, and they're making all the X-wing pilots do sweeps and doing their best to try to figure out where exactly they went. Hugh Yang's pissed because he told them to stick together, and he said they didn't listen, and they never listen. Um, you could tell he feels like he failed his masters. Um, but then here you got Jason listening to the waves. He could hear the lightsabers clash, and it's just cool because he's really one of the young potential Jedi that could come out of this and either be trained by who knows who after all this is said and done. Um, and he could end up being a pretty big character in the near future. Um, I think they're setting Jason up a lot more nicely than they are with Sabine, to be honest. I kind of wish Sabine, um, no Sabine in this one, no Balin in this one, uh, no Shin, no Morgan Elsbeth, no none of that. Still no Thrawn. Uh, but anyways, once we go back into the world between worlds with Ahsoka and Anakin, and then he's back in that uh, just a Revenge of the Sith outfit, and then you could tell he's about to give Ahsoka the final lesson once he pops back in, and he's got the red lightsaber this time. And I'm pretty sure I thought about it um, in the moment. I was like, I'm pretty sure Anakin, without the Darth Vader outfit on, has never wielded or especially fought with the red lightsaber before. I know there was some concept art for Revenge of the Sith during the Obi-Wan Kenobi fight to where Anakin actually had a red lightsaber during that fight on Mustafar. Um, but obviously we know they just went with the two blue, which I'm not mad at. But it was dope just seeing Anakin um, wielding the red lightsaber and then seeing his eyes just turn to that Sith color. Um, he was busting out some of his classic moves, that whole spin thing behind the back or whatever. Um, and that's probably one of the only things. Because to be honest, this episode is almost a 10 out of 10. Um, but for me, it goes back to the fighting style, and I feel like I heard Star Wars Theory say the same thing, to where uh, the Disney lightsaber fighting choreography hasn't been, I feel like, what it should be. Um, Especially when you got what's supposed to be prime Anakin Skywalker, prime, like no, yeah, he's got his hand chopped off because Dooku, but other than that, he's literally at full strength, and I feel like he would have done a lot more of what he was doing against Obi-Wan on Mustafar to Ahsoka, and kind of making Ahsoka kind of feel her age at the moment, because that joke that Anakin tells Ahsoka, to where they're looking at each other and she's saying that you look the same, and then Anakin tells her, "You look old." Um, I kind of would have liked to see kind of where Anakin he's doing all his crazy prequel fighting style moves on Ahsoka, and Ahsoka being the age that she is during the World Between Worlds in this episode, she could kind of take that more of a Obi-Wan approach to where how he was fighting Anakin on Mustafar, because they're probably around the same age. If Ahsoka might be a little bit older than where Obi-Wan was at in Revenge of the Sith, but it can't be that much far apart. Um, but that would probably be my biggest critique. Is just I wish they would get, I believe it's Nick Gillard from the prequels, the choreographer for the lightsaber battles. Um, but I think there's just so much more they can do with the choreography. At least take a little bit more extra time for the actors. I'm sorry, put in a little bit more extra work for a way more epic lightsaber battle. Um, but again, to what I was saying, it wasn't just fan service. There was the dialogue and the lessons in between the battles between Ahsoka and Anakin. It had all that, and it hit on all cylinders for me. Um, and it was just cool whenever you see Ahsoka and she grabs a hold of Anakin's red lightsaber, and then you see her eyes kind of turn as if what could have been if she let herself, the rage and the anger that she's always had since she was young take over her. But she tosses the saber and she chooses to live, and that's pretty much the final lesson at the end of the day from Anakin to Ahsoka. She's just been fighting to survive instead of fighting to live. Um, I'm hoping this kind of makes Anakin Ahsoka's Obi-Wan, to where Luke had Obi-Wan and Force Ghost Obi-Wan throughout time. Um, I'm hoping this is kind of what this turns out to be in a way, to where now that Ahsoka is pretty much the Gandalf of Star Wars at this point, to where Gandalf is, obviously from Gandalf the Grey to Gandalf the White, where we see him in Lord of the Rings. Ahsoka kind of takes the same route, to where she's defeated, dead, whatever, but is pretty much reborn and brought back as Ahsoka the White, because you see it right away. She was wearing gray the whole time during the series, and then once we see her, once she's rescued by Hera and Jason and the whole crew, um, she has the white robe on, and they're trying to figure out, is Sabine alive? Where she's at? How do they reach her? And the episode just keeps going and going, even after the whole Anakin and Ahsoka scenes. Everything with the Purgle, the space whales, um, them kind of just figuring out this way how to use the space whales to travel through space at light speed and hopefully find Sabine. Um, that was like a whole just Rebels galore right there, I felt like. And it was really cool to see all these characters in live action interacting with each other. Um, I'm trying to think of a lot of things that I'm probably missing to talk about so far. I know there's a lot of stuff probably with Anakin that I want to talk about. Um, but yeah, just going back to the dialogue that Ahsoka and Anakin are having together. Um, she's saying, "I won't fight you," and he's saying, "I heard that before." Um, just them talking to each other and interacting with each other on this level, and them just nailing it. It honestly, I thought everything besides some of the choreography on the lightsaber fights, but even still, like I'm not complaining about that. That's not taking me out of it. Um, I thought everything hit on all cylinders, and I could see why they decided to release this episode in select theaters because I bet you it looked pretty dope. Um, and if this is what Dave Filoni is bringing to the table, and they're really gonna go forward with his movie, I think not only is the choreography of the lightsaber fights going to go up just because of the budget of a major motion picture, but obviously the CGI is going to be even crazier. Um, and you just get that big movie budget with everything, the upgrade. Give Dave Filoni the keys, let him cook. Because what he's doing right now is clearly, I think, working for the majority of Star Wars fans. And I think it's bringing a lot of people back in to come check out the show and see what has been going on with Ahsoka. Uh, and I think these last couple episodes, they're really gonna tie the story up nicely and kind of set us up for what comes next after this. I don't think we're done with Anakin in this series. For sure. Well, not this season. He's coming back for sure. Um, he'll probably come back next week. But Anakin for sure is coming back. Um, I'm trying to think of some of the stuff I missed with Anakin and Ahsoka and just them kind of talking. Um, just like the way the actress that played young Ahsoka, and right away I was like, that looks like the young Gamora from Infinity War, and it was. I'm pretty sure that's correct. But right away I was like, that looks like young Gamora right there, and I thought she did a really good job playing her. Um, it's really cool now that she's Ahsoka the White, she's just kind of more of that laid back, fun, goofy Ahsoka now. It's how she was in the Clone Wars. She kind of found herself again, and I think she's just more clear minded and just more powerful now with the Force. After going through all that with Anakin, uh, but I'm just happy for Hayden Christensen. Uh, I'm glad that he got this redemption because in Kenobi, he didn't get to flex as much as we were hoping for. Again, I don't want to poop on Kenobi as much as I already have in the past, but that's kind of what we thought we were going to get with Kenobi, were a lot of these scenes with Hayden and Ewan McGregor because obviously, right? But that's not what we got. We only got a couple scenes between the two, which is crazy to even fathom when you're looking at this in Ahsoka. Uh, this is what we thought we were gonna get in Kenobi, but thankfully, Dave Filoni, our force and savior, he's coming and giving us what we've been asking for, and I can't wait for next week. Um, oh yeah, that's right. When they show the siege of Mandalore, right, and you see the Darth Maul troopers with the helmets. I noticed that right away, and that was one of the first things I said. I was like, "Oh, those are." I was like, "Where's Darth Maul at? Is he gonna pop up?" Um, that was a cool moment that I noticed. That I don't know. I just this episode was it just made you think like, what's gonna happen next? What's gonna happen next? And that's some of the best things about Star Wars. I feel like, um, and they're bringing the whole theories back on who's this or who's that or what's gonna happen with the story. Stay away from the leaks, y'all. That's all I gotta say. A lot of people like to leak nowadays, and a lot of people like to report on the leaks too, and or they'll say something that they heard, but I'm not saying it's a leak, but it's a leak. Uh, I'm not about that life, and I hate getting spoiled on anything. I try my best to stay off the internet and not see things, And for the most part, I feel like I've done a good job at that. But sometimes you just can't avoid it, dude. I don't care who you are. But y'all let me know what y'all thought of the episode. Yay or nay. I give it a solid 9.5 out of 10. And that's crazy for me to even say. Like, comment, subscribe. Links to all my socials will be in the description. I got a bunch of the Heir to the Empire comic books, the old school Timothy Zahn novels from back in the day. Everything dealing with Thrawn and Luke and Mara Jade. But I got the comic books on my Snapchat, on my public profile. If you want to go check them out, full pages. If you kind of want to learn a little bit more about Thrawn and what he might be bringing to the table in the next couple of episodes and in the future, because we still haven't seen him. But I think that's going to change next week. So if you want to catch up, Heir of the Empire comic books, I want to say at least 50 comic books on my Snapchat right now at admiremymoonsault. Links will be in the description. I can't wait for next week, y'all. But until then, y'all stay safe, and I'll catch y'all on the flip. Peace.